First Contact Protocol. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the research vessel Curiosity, watching the strange crystalline structure floating in the void ahead. The structure pulsed with a faint blue light that seemed to follow some complex mathematical pattern, definitely not natural and definitely not human-made. Analysis complete, Captain. Lieutenant Park's voice carried across the bridge. The signal matches no known configuration in our database, but it's definitely a distress beacon. Been broadcasting for approximately 15,000 years. Chen ran her fingers through her short black hair, a habit that had become more frequent since they'd picked up the signal 3 days ago. 15,000 years. That meant whatever civilization had created this beacon had achieved interstellar travel while humans were still figuring out agriculture. Dr. Roberts, your assessment. Chen turned to their xenoarchaeologist, who hadn't moved from his station since they'd first spotted the structure. It's beautiful, he whispered, not taking his eyes off his readings. The crystalline matrix is self-repairing. That's why it's still functioning after all this time. But there's more. It's not just broadcasting distress. It's telling a story. The bridge fell silent. First contact protocols were clear: observe, document, and wait for instructions from Earth. But Earth was 3 weeks away at best speed, and if this really was a distress signal, show me, Chen ordered, moving to Robert's station. The scientist's hands flew across his console, translating the complex patterns of light into data streams. The civilization called themselves the Lumini, Roberts explained, excitement making his voice shake. They are beings of pure energy who developed crystalline technology to interact with the physical world. But something happened, some kind of cascade failure in their stellar engineering project. Their entire civilization began to lose cohesion. And they've been broadcasting for help all this time. Lieutenant Park asked, horrified. For 15,000 years. No. Roberts shook his head. The message says they went into dormancy, scattered throughout this sector in similar crystalline matrices. This beacon was left to guide potential rescuers to their location. But here's the fascinating part. They specifically encoded warnings about Earth. Chen's eyebrows shot up. Warnings? About us. 15,000 years ago. Apparently, they detected our potential early on. The message says humans were too unpredictable, too adaptable, too dangerous to approach directly. They feared our capacity for rapid change would destabilize their carefully ordered society. A laugh escaped Chen before she could stop it. They were afraid of us when we were still living in caves. Captain, the ship's AI interrupted, its holographic avatar flickering to life. I've detected energy signatures consistent with the beacon structure scattered throughout the nearby asteroid field. Preliminary count suggests over 300 separate matrices. Chen looked back at the viewport, at the gently pulsing crystal that had waited so long to be found. First contact protocols were clear. They should wait for instructions, for diplomats and experts and committees to debate the proper course of action. But 15,000 years was a long time to wait for help. Dr. Roberts, can you send a response through the beacon? Let them know we're here. Roberts nodded slowly. The encoding is complex but consistent. I can transmit a basic message. Do it. Chen straightened her uniform. Send this. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth research vessel Curiosity. We've received your distress signal and stand ready to assist. Your fears about humanity are not unfounded. We are unpredictable. But that also means we might find solutions where others cannot. We offer our help freely, without condition. The crystal's pulsing changed, quickened. Patterns of light danced across its surface in accelerating sequences. They're responding, Roberts breathed, watching his readings. The dormant matrices are activating. They're waking up. Throughout the asteroid field, points of light began to shine like new stars being born. The Lumini were stirring from their long sleep, and humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization was about to begin. A warning flashed across Chen's console. Ships entering the system at FTL speeds. Not Earth ships. Someone else had been watching, waiting for the Lumini to wake. Multiple contacts, Lieutenant Park reported, tension in his voice. Configuration unknown. Energy readings massive. Chen smiled grimly. The Lumini had called humans unpredictable. Time to prove them right. All hands to stations, she ordered. Let's show our new friends what humanity can do. And send a message to Earth. Tell them first contact protocols have been necessarily adapted. The unknown ships dropped out of FTL, their hulls dark and angular, a sharp contrast to the crystalline beauty of Lumini technology. They moved with precision, surrounding the asteroid field in a clearly practiced maneuver. But they hadn't counted on humans being here. They hadn't counted on human unpredictability. And as Captain Chen looked at the tactical display, watching the new arrivals settle into their positions, she was already seeing possibilities they'd never expect. The game was about to begin, and humanity's first steps into a larger galaxy would not be the careful, measured pace that bureaucrats had planned. Instead, it would be a sprint, a dance, a wild improvisation. Everything that made humans who they were. The Lumini had feared human unpredictability. Their watchers were about to learn why. Dr. Roberts, Chen called out, not taking her eyes off the tactical display. How good are you at improvising? The scientist looked up from his console, a slow smile spreading across his face. Captain, I'm human. Improvising is what we do best. And with that, humanity's greatest adventure began. Not with careful diplomacy, but with the wild, wonderful unpredictability that had taken them from caves to the stars. The universe was about to learn why you should never underestimate humans, even when they're exactly what you fear them to be. The warning signs, the crystalline beings of the Lumini danced through space, like aurora borealis given consciousness, their light patterns shifting in complex conversations that Dr. Roberts was only beginning to understand. 3 days had passed since their awakening, and the Curiosity's crew watched in fascination as these ancient beings reconstructed their civilization among the asteroids. The mysterious watchers had withdrawn to the edge of the system, their dark ships maintaining a precise formation that spoke of military discipline. They hadn't responded to any attempts at communication, but they hadn't interfered either. Yet, they're discussing quantum architecture, Roberts explained to Captain Chen as they observed a group of Lumini reconstructing what appeared to be a city-sized lattice of crystal and light. Their technology doesn't just use quantum effects, it shapes them, creates stable patterns that shouldn't be possible according to our understanding of physics. And what are they saying about our friends out there? Chen nodded toward the distant watchers. Robert's expression darkened. They call them the Arbiters. Apparently, they've encountered them before, long ago. The Lumini say they're collectors, preservers of knowledge and technology. But there's something else, something they're reluctant to discuss. Lieutenant Park's voice cut through their conversation. Captain, we're detecting energy fluctuations from the Arbiter fleet. They're moving. 3 of the dark ships detached from their formation, approaching the asteroid field with deliberate slowness. As they drew closer, the Lumini's light patterns shifted from their usual blue to a deeper purple that Roberts had never seen before. They're afraid, he whispered, studying his readings. But not just of the Arbiters. They're afraid of how we'll react. The lead Arbiter ship broadcast a message, not in radio waves or light pulses, but in precisely modulated gravitational waves that made the Curiosity's sensors scream in protest. Translation coming through, Park announced. Text only. We claim authority under the ancient preservation protocols. The Lumini civilization has been designated for conservation. All unauthorized interactions must cease. Chen's laugh held no humor. Unauthorized by whom? The response came immediately. By those who remember. By those who preserve. By those who understand the true nature of order. Captain, Roberts interrupted, his voice urgent. The Lumini are trying to tell us something, but they're using a much more complex encoding than before. It's like they're trying to hide it from the arbiters. Can you decode it? Working on it. There's something about the arbiter's presence that seems to be interfering with the Lumini's ability to communicate clearly. Almost like they're being suppressed. Chen finished. Lieutenant Park, run a full spectral analysis on those arbiter ships. Focus on any emissions that might interact with crystalline structures. The results came back quickly, and they were disturbing. The arbiter ships were emanating a complex field of overlapping frequencies, subtle enough to escape casual detection, but perfectly tuned to influence the quantum states that the Lumini used for thought and communication. They're not preserving, Chen said quietly. They're controlling. How many civilizations have they preserved like this? Roberts finally decoded the hidden message, and his face went pale. Captain, the Lumini say the arbiters have been manipulating developing civilizations for millions of years. They seed worlds with technology, wait for societies to develop around it, then step in to preserve them once they reach a certain level. But they could never successfully seed Earth because we're too unpredictable. Chen finished. We don't develop along their expected patterns. We take technology and use it in ways they never anticipated. The arbiter's message came again. Your interference risks contaminating a preserved civilization. Withdraw immediately or face archival. Chen looked at the tactical display, where dozens of other dark ships were now moving to surround both the Curiosity and the Lumini settlement. The arbiters had clearly done this many times before, and they expected this encounter to play out according to their carefully preserved protocols. But they had never dealt with humans before. Dr. Roberts, Chen called out, how thoroughly have you mapped the quantum frequencies the Lumini use for communication? Fairly completely, but his eyes widened as he realized what she was suggesting. Captain, if we try to interfere with the arbiter's suppression field, we could destabilize the entire local quantum framework. The results would be completely unpredictable. Exactly. Chen's smile was fierce, and unpredictable is what humans do best. Lieutenant Park, prepare to execute Emergency Pattern Alpha. Dr. Roberts, I need you to work with our quantum specialists. The arbiters have spent millions of years imposing their version of order on the galaxy. Let's show them what a little chaos can do. As the crew rushed to implement her orders, Chen sent a final message to the arbiters. You fear human unpredictability. You're about to learn why. The Lumini's light patterns shifted again, and this time Roberts didn't need to translate. Their meaning was clear. Hope. For the first time in 15,000 years, someone was about to challenge the arbiter's perfect preserved order. And who better to introduce chaos to their system than the species they could never successfully predict? The battle for free will was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weapon would be the very quality that had kept them isolated for so long, their wonderful, terrible unpredictability. Breaking point. The quantum storm that erupted around the Curiosity defied every law of physics humanity had ever written. Colors that shouldn't exist rippled through space as Dr. Roberts' hastily engineered interference pattern collided with the arbiter's control field, creating cascading waves of chaos in the quantum fabric of space-time itself. Status report. Chen's voice cut through the chaos on the bridge as another reality-bending wave washed over the ship. Hull integrity holding at 82%. Park responded, his fingers dancing across his console. The quantum shields are adapting to each new pattern as it forms, just like we hoped. The arbiter ships, however. He gestured to the tactical display with a grim smile. The perfect formation of the arbiter fleet had shattered. Their ships, designed to impose order on the universe, were struggling against waves of pure unpredictability. Some were spinning in place, their quantum-based systems unable to cope with the fundamental wrongness of what humanity had unleashed. The Lumini? Chen asked, turning to Roberts. The scientist was bent over his readings, his expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. They're dancing. Captain, they're using the quantum chaos we've created to break free of the arbiter's suppression. Their true forms, It's incredible. Through the viewport, the crystalline matrices that had housed the Lumini for millennia were dissolving, releasing beings of pure energy that moved with a freedom they hadn't known since before their long sleep. Their light patterns had evolved beyond anything Roberts could translate, but their joy was unmistakable. Incoming transmission, Park announced. The arbiters are broadcasting on all frequencies. The message that filled the bridge was different from before. Gone was the cold certainty, replaced by something almost like fear. What have you done? The patterns, the preservation protocols. You're destroying millions of years of careful cultivation. No, Chen responded, her voice hard. We're setting them free. Humanity refuses your version of preservation. Life isn't meant to be preserved. It's meant to grow, to change, to evolve. Even if that means being unpredictable. The quantum storm intensified, and with it came something unexpected. Other ships were appearing at the edge of the system, vessels of countless designs, each representing a civilization that the arbiters had preserved. Their quantum suppression failing, the carefully archived species were awakening to true freedom for the first time in ages. Captain, Roberts called out, excitement in his voice. The Lumini are communicating with the other freed species. They're sharing something, a memory, from before their dormancy. The image that appeared on the main screen showed Earth, but not as anyone had ever seen it. It was Earth of 15,000 years ago, viewed through the Lumini's quantum-sensitive perception. And there, visible to their unique senses, was humanity's greatest secret, a pattern of possibility that surrounded every human being, a constantly shifting web of potential futures that defied any attempt at prediction or control. That's why they feared us, Roberts whispered. Why the arbiters could never successfully seed Earth with their technology. Every human carries that pattern, an inherent resistance to having our future predetermined. We're quantum uncertainty made conscious. The arbiters' perfectly ordered fleet was in full retreat now, their ships falling back before the wave of awakening civilizations. But their final message echoed through the chaos. You don't understand what you've done. The galaxy needs order, structure. Without our preservation, chaos will consume everything. You're wrong, Chen replied. The galaxy doesn't need your kind of order. It needs balance. Chaos and order, predictability and uncertainty, preservation and growth. Humanity may be unpredictable, but that's exactly what the universe needs right now. The Lumini surrounded the Curiosity, their energy forms creating patterns that even the arbiter's most advanced sensors couldn't comprehend. Through Robert's quantum interface, they shared a simple message. For 15,000 years, we feared humanity's unpredictability. Now we understand. It was never a flaw to be feared, but a gift to be embraced. You carry within you the power to break any pattern, to find paths that no one else can see. We offer not our surrender, but our gratitude. As the arbiters vanished into the depths of space, their perfect order shattered forever, the freed civilizations began to gather. Ships of every size and description, housing species that had been preserved for millennia, formed a vast spiral around the Curiosity. The quantum storm was subsiding, leaving in its wake something new, a galaxy where order and chaos could coexist, where unpredictability was no longer a curse but a blessing. Captain Chen looked out at the assembled fleet, at the Lumini dancing between the ships in patterns of pure joy, and smiled. Send a message to Earth, she ordered. Tell them that humanity's greatest fear about itself, our unpredictability, our chaos, our inability to fit into neat patterns, just save the galaxy. And this is only the beginning. The universe would never be the same. And that, after all, was the most human thing about it, the human factor. 3 weeks after what was already being called the liberation, the space around the Curiosity had transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. Where there had once been only a scattered field of asteroids, now a vast gathering of civilizations created patterns of light and energy that defied description. Captain Chen stood in the newly constructed quantum conference chamber, surrounded by representatives of 24 formerly preserved species. The Lumini had helped build this space where energy beings, physical entities, and everything in between could communicate freely. The chamber itself was a testament to what freed civilizations could accomplish, a perfect blend of order and chaos, structure and possibility. The Arbiter's influence went deeper than we imagined. A being of pure plasma, who called itself the voice of the Helios Collective, was saying. Its words appeared as patterns of fire in the quantum field that filled the chamber. They didn't just suppress our development, they altered our very perception of what was possible. That was their true power, Roberts added. He'd barely slept in weeks, too fascinated by the exchange of knowledge happening around them. They didn't just control technology, they controlled the stories civilizations told themselves about what they could become. A crystalline entity, similar to but distinct from the Lumini, chimed in with harmonics that the chamber translated. We believed we needed their guidance, their preservation. We forgot that true preservation doesn't mean remaining static. It means maintaining the ability to grow, to change, to evolve. Chen watched the interactions with a mixture of pride and concern. Humanity had freed these civilizations, yes, but freedom brought its own challenges. Already, there were signs of tension as species that had been preserved in isolation for millennia learned to interact with each other. Captain Park's voice came through her neural link. We're detecting unusual quantum signatures at the edge of the system, similar to the Arbiter's ships, but different. Before Chen could respond, the chamber's sensors registered the new arrivals. The gathered representatives fell silent as images appeared in the quantum field. Massive vessels of dark matter and negative space, even more imposing than the Arbiter's ships had been. The predecessors, whispered the Lumini representative, its light patterns shifting to deep purple. Those who came before even the Arbiters. We thought they were just legends. The new vessels made no attempt to communicate through conventional means. Instead, the quantum field itself seemed to speak, carrying concepts rather than mere words. AG. Observation. Judgment. They're not here to fight, Roberts said, studying his readings with growing excitement. They're here to evaluate. Chen stepped forward, letting her natural quantum uncertainty pattern, now visible to her through the chamber's interfaces, shine clearly. We welcome you, she said, both in words and in the quantum fluctuations that the chamber translated into universal concepts. Humanity is young in the galaxy, but we come with open minds and ready hearts. The response came in waves of pure concept. Shading, waiting, testing. Images flowed through the quantum field. The Arbiters' rise to power, their transformation from preservers to controllers, and finally, humanity's intervention. But there was something else, something deeper. They engineered it. Roberts breathed, his eyes wide as he interpreted the quantum data. The predecessors, they let the Arbiters rise to power, let them implement their preservation protocols across the galaxy. They were waiting to see how younger species would respond to enforced order. A test, Chen realized. The entire galaxy was part of an experiment in free will and determination. Potential, the predecessors confirmed. Adaptation. Growth. The quantum field filled with new images, humanity's history, but seen through the predecessors' incomprehensible senses. Every time humanity had faced extinction, every moment they had overcome impossible odds, every instance of human unpredictability, changing the course of their own evolution. The predecessors had been watching all along, waiting to see if humanity would embrace their quantum uncertainty nature. That's why Earth was never successfully seeded with Arbiter technology, Roberts said, the pieces finally falling into place. The predecessors were protecting us, letting us develop naturally, waiting to see if we would become what they hoped. Balance, the predecessors projected. Order and chaos, pay ttron, and pos si diality way. The gathered representatives watched in awe as the predecessors' ships began to move, arranging themselves in a formation that somehow existed in more dimensions than the human mind could comprehend. Within the pattern of their movement was a message, not just for humanity, but for all the freed civilizations. The time of preservation was over. The time of growth had begun. "They're offering to teach us," Roberts explained, his voice thick with emotion. "Not to control or preserve, but to guide. To help us understand the true nature of the universe, not as a place of pure order or pure chaos, but as a dance between the two." Chen looked around the chamber at the representatives of species that had been frozen in time for so long, seeing in their various forms of expression the same mix of fear and hope that she felt. Humanity had freed them from the Arbiter's enforced order. But this was something far greater. "We accept your guidance," she said to the predecessors, not as subordinates, but as students eager to learn. "Humanity's unpredictability will remain our strength, but perhaps you can help us understand how to use it wisely." The predecessors' response filled the quantum field with possibilities, futures branching and recombining in endless patterns of potential. They were showing them not just what could be, but what would be needed. A new galactic society where order and chaos worked in harmony, where preservation meant nurturing growth rather than preventing change. The human factor, that wonderful, terrible unpredictability, had not just saved the galaxy from stagnation. It had opened the door to something far greater, a future where every species could discover its own unique balance between certainty and possibility, pattern and potential, preservation and growth. The real adventure was just beginning. New Dawn. 1 year after the liberation, Earth's first quantum embassy hung in space like a dream made real. Its crystalline spires, grown with Lumini technology and shaped by human creativity, shifted and flowed in patterns that represented the new balance between order and chaos. Captain Chen, now Ambassador Chen, stood in her office, watching ships from 100 different species navigate the complex dance of diplomatic arrival and departure. "The latest reports from the integration teams are in," Roberts announced as he entered, his quantum interface implant glowing softly at his temple. The former xenorchaeologist had become humanity's leading expert on interspecies cultural exchange. 20 more preserved civilizations have awakened in the past month alone. The quantum awakening is spreading faster than we can track it. Chen nodded, her eyes on a particularly beautiful ship that seemed to be made entirely of frozen light, the work of a species that had been preserved for so long they'd forgotten they were once masters of stellar engineering. And the Arbiters, still in retreat, but we're monitoring quantum echoes that suggest they're regrouping in the galactic core. The predecessors say we shouldn't be concerned. Apparently, this is all still proceeding according to their models. Even our unpredictability was, ironically, predicted. "Not predicted," came a new voice as Administrator Park entered the office. The former lieutenant had taken charge of coordinating between human and alien technological integration. "The predecessors are teaching me their quantum probability mathematics. They didn't predict our actions. They predicted our potential for action. There's a difference." Through the quantum-enhanced windows, they could see the massive forms of the predecessor vessels in their strange, multi-dimensional orbit around the embassy. Their presence was both reassuring and humbling. A reminder that for all humanity had accomplished, they were still taking their first steps into a universe far more complex than they had imagined. "The latest data from the Cultural Exchange Program is fascinating," Roberts continued, bringing up a holographic display. "Species that were preserved for millennia are experiencing unprecedented bursts of creative and technological development. It's like they're making up for lost time, but with the wisdom to avoid the mistakes that led to their preservation in the first place." "And the Lumini?" Chen asked, thinking of the beings who had waited 15,000 years for rescue, only to become humanity's first and strongest allies. "Thriving. Their quantum engineering capabilities are advancing exponentially now that they're free to experiment again. They're talking about attempting their original stellar engineering project again. but this time with human chaos theory experts as consultants. The quantum field rippled with an incoming transmission. The predecessors rarely communicated directly, but when they did, it was always significant. The message emerged in the shared consciousness of the quantum interface. Evolution ACCLE potential expanding. New phase beginning. Through the window, space itself seemed to shift as the predecessor vessels began a new configuration. The pattern they formed was impossible for human minds to fully comprehend, but its meaning was clear. Something was changing on a fundamental level. They're saying that the quantum awakening has reached a critical mass, Roberts interpreted, his eyes wide. The combined creative potential of all the awakened species is actually altering the fundamental constants of the galaxy. We're not just growing, we're helping the universe itself evolve. Chen remembered the early days of her career, when humanity had looked to the stars and wondered if they were alone. Now they knew the truth. The galaxy had always been full of life, but that life had been trapped, preserved in amber by beings who had forgotten that true preservation meant nurturing growth, not preventing it. "Ambassador," Park called out, his voice urgent but excited. "We're detecting quantum signature changes throughout the embassy. The predecessor's pattern is having an effect on our own technology." The changes were visible even to the naked eye. The crystalline structure of the embassy was responding to the quantum shift, its patterns becoming more complex, more alive. But it wasn't just the building. Every piece of technology, every communication system, every interface was evolving, becoming something that blended the best of order and chaos, pattern and possibility. They're not just teaching us, Chen realized. They're showing us what we can become. What the galaxy can become when every species is free to contribute its unique perspective. Through the quantum field, they could sense the reactions of the other species as the changes spread. Fear gave way to wonder. Uncertainty transformed into possibility. The very fabric of space-time was learning to dance to a new rhythm, one that embraced both the precise mathematics of the predecessors and the wonderful unpredictability of humanity. "Send a message to Earth," Chen ordered, her voice soft with awe. Tell them that the universe is more wonderful and strange than we ever imagined, and humanity's greatest gift to it wasn't our technology, or our strength, or even our unpredictability. It was our willingness to embrace change, to see chaos not as an enemy of order, but as its dance partner. As if in response to her words, the quantum field filled with images from across the galaxy. Species awakening, civilizations remembering who they had been and dreaming of who they could become, the rigid patterns of preserved order giving way to the flowing rhythms of natural growth. The predecessor's final message of the day rippled through the embassy. The experiment continues. The dance evolves. The story grows. And in that moment, watching the galaxy transform around them, Chen understood the truth that the predecessors had known all along. Humanity's unpredictability, the very thing that had made them feared, was exactly what the universe needed to remember how to grow, how to change, how to live. The age of preservation was over. The age of possibility had begun. And somewhere in the vast dance of galaxies, the universe itself smiled at the beauty of imperfection, at the wonder of uncertainty, at the joy of never knowing quite what would happen next. The story of humanity among the stars would continue, not as conquerors or saviors, but as dancers in the greatest ballet ever performed. The eternal dance of order and chaos, pattern and possibility, preservation and growth, spinning on into infinity.